I met a gypsy.
I can't imagine the difficulty that you'd face when you just kind of like cold turkey quit racing, you know, like you literally have nowhere to be and nothing to do. And, you know, if you've played your cards right and you've made some money in your career, like you shouldn't have to do anything again. But then it's like, that's a very weird place to be when you're in your late 20s.
Yeah, man, it's so strange because no one around you, like in a normal life, like when you see them, a lot of times their question is, what do you do? And so, you know, I got to the point where I would just start telling people nothing. They'd be like, so what do you do? And I would just say, nothing, you know, like because everyone wants an answer. Like they want to know like, hey, what's your next steps, you know? And I didn't know. And man, it's odd because, you know, from 19 years old, I had contracts, I had responsibilities, I had a place to be, a goal to strive for. And then, you know, to do that for basically 20 years, you know, to just hit the stop button.
Yeah.
Is odd, is really odd. And you got a lot of life in front of you. So what do you do at that point? It's not a fun time.
Were you cognizant of it though when you were racing and then kind of getting towards the end of your career that, okay, I need to be Trey Canard outside of like Trey Canard the racer? Because I think that, you know, there's a lot of guys, and I mean, dude, I can see guys where they've been retired for a while and they're still like their identity is still so tied to like what they did and their accomplishments and who they were. It's like, it's a very slippery slope, and I feel like it can cause a lot of unhappiness in people. It can cause people to like keep going maybe way longer than they should, which can lead to like injuries, and then like you can really compound struggle if you don't have the identity part of the equation kind of figured out before you pull that ripcord.
Yeah, and it's hard to think that way, right? Because when you're in it, you got to be like
in it,
like totally submerged. So to think like, hey, in 5 years, I'm gonna, you know, pull the plug and I'm gonna open a coffee shop, you know, whatever it is. It's like your head doesn't even go there, and it can't really go there because, especially like the one of the reasons I knew I was done is I was racing Redbud in 2017, and I was thinking, and I was like, and then all of a sudden I'm not reacting.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, man, I can't be out there, you know, thinking about what I'm going to be doing and worrying about, you know, is this going to be dangerous for me, or is that mistake going to be cause an injury? Or, you know, when I stopped, you know, responding and reacting to what was happening and started thinking about it too much, I was like, no. And so I guess why I say this is that, man, you got to be like neck deep in it all the time to do it at your best and to do it safe. So to think like 5 years out is really tough to do. And then on top of that is, you know, take a college athlete, you know, or, you know, an NBA player, you know, football, whatever it is. You know, you spend a lot of your childhood in like, you know, school sports, and maybe you do 3, 4, or 5 different sports. And then you kind of land on one, maybe two kind of thing that you specialize in. And then you go to college, and then you spend 4 years working on a degree and, you know, working on your craft. And then maybe you make it to a professional league. And by that time you're 22, 23 years old, and you've got a lot of different life experience behind you.
Yeah.
Where kind of like action sports athletes, we start so young, like we're contracted at 8, 9 years old to some degree. And then your whole identity, it never has an opportunity to see yourself outside of that, you know? So
100%.
You're just like, I'm Trey the racer, and I don't know what I am outside of that because I've never really experienced anything outside of that. And so I think where a lot of guys in the action sports world get sideways when they're done racing is they they literally don't know who they are without that. And so it's difficult, and I'm happy that I have this testing role, because it kind of allows me to have one foot in the door, and then also kind of continue to try to figure out who I am outside of motorcycles. So yeah, it's a tough one to figure out.
Yeah, man, and not a lot of guys get, you know, that opportunity that you got to kind of, you know, like you said, you still got one foot in the door, like you're still at the races, like you're still, because I mean, you'd love it too, you know, like I think that's another thing is like, you look at a guy like Chad Reed or Jeremy McGrath, or it's like, dude, as if they would stop racing if they could like keep. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
McGrath
would still be Supercross champion if he could.
Yeah, you'd still do it. You know, like you love to do it, and then it's like when something that you love gets taken away, and then there's like, it's so gnarly. Like, oh, what bikes are you going to be on? Is anyone going to give you bikes? Does anyone care enough about you when you're done to give you bikes, or are you going to be the 2-time Supercross champion that's rolling up to a dealership buying, you know, like there's some like weird feelings that come with that too, you know, like there's actually a lot to navigate.
It's weird, and I don't think you realize how addicted you are to all of the good chemicals. You know, I remember, you know, whenever a couple stories come to mind. Whenever I first stopped, I really stopped for my head. I had kind of 3 or 4 concussions the last couple years that I had them and I wasn't recovering like I had before. You know, like the symptoms were lasting longer and longer, and there was a lot of research about CTE coming out, and it just got spooky. So I didn't do anything physically for probably 5 months.
Yeah.
And I remember riding my mountain bike, and I washed the front end, like going over this little spine, and I started laughing. And I was like, you know, I'd always heard the term adrenaline junkie, and I'm like, that's so stupid. Like, I'm not in it for the adrenaline. But I started giggling, you know, like not even really thinking about it. And then they just hit me in that moment going like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're
maybe
whack.
Maybe it was a little bit about all the good feeling, adrenaline, and just another story that comes to mind is Ryan Hughes. I remember going to Anaheim 1. I was doing my safety deal, and he came up to me. He's like, "How you doing, man?" And I was, you know, giving him the standard, "Hey, I'm, you know, great, just trying to figure life out." And he goes, "No, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm struggling." But we were standing on the floor of Anaheim, and he kind of goes like, once you've been in this, you know, how do you go anywhere else? And I, you know, I respect that, because, you know, once you've been on the center of attention to 60,000 plus people, you don't realize how much of that, you know, a validation and recognition and namesake, all that, you don't realize how much of that is actually feeding your identity and making you feel good. And you don't realize how much of that you're actually doing it for. And you know, especially for me, you know, faith was always a big deal to me. So, you know, those types of things are things that I would kind of shy away from in a way, as far as, you know, getting validation from people and that kind of thing. But I guess I just didn't realize how much of that I was really kind of addicted to. Yeah. Whether it was the, you know, "Hey Trey, you're a great guy, you know, I love watching you ride. Remember this race or that race?" Or, you know, "Hey, you know, like, man, that scrub was sick. I have that poster." You don't realize how much of that is actually feeding your identity until it's like not there, you know. And then you're like, well, if people aren't telling me who I am, then who am I? I don't know who I am unless people are telling me who I am. And so it's a strange thing to navigate, but I think you can come out of it. You know, I think a lot of people get bitter, you know, they hit that hard stop, and then they're like, "I hate racing. I hate, you know, no one called me whenever I stopped and got out of the sport, and no one wants to give me a bike," like you said, that kind of thing. And I can see how it could be easy to get that way. but you got to realize how much of it was really good, you know?
Yeah.
And man, not many people get the chance to do that. Like it is a small percentage of the population. So, it's a difficult perspective switch, but I think if you can be grateful for what it was and realize, wow, this was a great time in my life. I think if you can take that, I think that's the way to look at it.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.